the Great Smoky Mountains. A realm of breathtaking beauty, sculpted by time itself. By day, sunlight filters through a canopy of ancient hardwoods, illuminating a world teeming with life. It's a sanctuary, a playground, a living postcard of Appalachian splendor, drawing millions into its embrace. But this land has two faces. When the sun dips below the jagged peaks and the famous blue smoke thickens into an impenetrable fog, the postcard image tears away. A different world emerges, one governed by older, more primal rules. It's in these moments of transition that the stories begin. Hikers, experienced and prepared, step onto a trail and are never seen again, their disappearances leaving behind nothing but questions and a chilling void. Seasoned hunters, men who know the sound of every creature in these woods, report hearing blood-curdling screams that defy all biological classification. Screams that are not of animal rage but of intelligent, tormented anguish. And then there are the sightings. Colossal, shadowy figures glimpsed moving with impossible speed and silence between the ancient trees, their forms blurring into the deep woods before the mind can even process what the eye has just seen. For many, these are just stories, campfire tales, the product of an overactive imagination fueled by the disorienting power of the wilderness. They call it legend, folklore, a modern myth born from our primal fear of the dark. Park officials, bound by policy and a mandate to ensure public safety, offer rational explanations. Mistaken identity, bears, the tricks that light and shadow play in a dense forest. But for a growing number of others, it is a terrifying, life-altering reality. They are the eyewitnesses, the truck drivers, the park visitors, the lifelong residents, who swear they have seen it with their own eyes. They speak of encounters that have shattered their understanding of the natural world, encounters they are often too afraid to share for fear of ridicule or dismissal. They carry a burden of knowledge, a glimpse behind a curtain they never knew existed. Tonight we journey deep into the heart of this mystery. We will peel back the layers of folklore and fear to investigate the persistent, chilling truth about the creature known as Bigfoot in the Great Smoky Mountains. This isn't just about a monster in the woods. It's about a hidden history, a biological enigma that has endured for centuries, and a story that some would prefer remain untold. We will analyze the evidence, speak to the witnesses who have risked everything to come forward, and consult with experts on both sides of the debate, all to answer one fundamental question. Are we alone in these ancient woods? The Great Smoky Mountains National Park is, by a wide margin, the most visited national park in the United States. Every year, more than 12 million people pour through its gates. They drive the scenic loops, hike the popular trails, and fill their cameras with stunning vistas. This staggering number presents a profound paradox. How can a creature of such purported size and significance remain hidden in a place teeming with human activity? The answer lies not on the paved roads, but in the 500,000 acres of raw, untamed wilderness that surrounds them. Just a few hundred yards from the busiest overlook, the terrain plunges into a labyrinth of steep ravines, dense rhododendron thickets known locally as hells, and a network of caves that have never been fully mapped. It is a landscape that can swallow a person whole, a perfect sanctuary for something that does not wish to be found. But beneath the postcard beauty lies something older than the park itself. This is not a new phenomenon. The creature's presence is woven into the very fabric of this land, a story that predates the park, the pioneers, and the country itself. The Cherokee, the first inhabitants of this region, called these mountains Shakanaj, the place of blue smoke. Their oldest traditions speak of the Tsul Kalu, a great slant-eyed giant who dwelled high in the mountains, a powerful being to be respected and feared. As European settlers pushed into these remote hollows, their diaries and letters began to fill with unnerving accounts of encounters with a wild man of the woods, a huge hair-covered figure that would watch them from a distance, leaving behind enormous human-like tracks in the mud. These historical whispers have now become a modern roar. Today the stories are no longer confined to dusty journals. They are logged in official 911 dispatch calls, documented in the extensive files of organizations like the Bigfoot Field Researchers Organization, and shared in hushed tones by park rangers speaking off the record. The reports are remarkably consistent, fleeting glimpses on fog-shrouded backroads, terrifying vocalizations that shake campers to their core, and the unsettling discovery of massive footprints in remote creek beds, physical evidence of something large, bipedal, and unknown to science. The Great Smoky Mountains hold their secrets close, cloaked in the ever-present fog that gives them their name. But this fog is more than just condensed water vapor, it is a living curtain, a shroud that conceals a profound and unsettling truth. There are secrets in these mountains, secrets that have weight, secrets that leave tracks, secrets that watch from the shadows with intelligent eyes. Our journey tonight is to part that curtain, to step into the shadows, and to confront the enduring question, what is truly hiding in the smoke? Long before the first European maps were drawn, long before the land was named Tennessee or North Carolina, the Cherokee people knew this place as their sacred center. They called these mountains Shaconage, the place of blue smoke. This was not merely a description of the ethereal haze that blankets the peaks, but a recognition of the mountain's very breath, a living spiritual essence that infused every rock, river, and ridge. This was the heart of their world, a place of creation stories, immense power, and profound mystery. To them, the Smokies were sacred, a source of life, medicine, and spiritual guidance. But they were also dangerous. The Cherokee understood that to live in harmony with such a powerful place required knowledge, respect, and a healthy measure of fear. The land provided for those who honored its rules, but it held dire consequences for those who did not. Their oral traditions were filled with stories that served as a guide to navigating this complex, spirit-filled landscape. Among the most formidable of these spirits was a being they called Tsul Kalu. He has them slanting, often translated as the slant-eyed giant. Far more than a simple monster, he was a massive, hairy being who was the great lord and protector of all game animals. Legends place his primary dwelling high on the slopes of Tennessee Bald, in a place the Cherokee called Sunagunyi, the White Place, from which he would watch over his domain. He was a judge of character, particularly for the hunters who entered his territory. Hunters feared his silent, ground-shaking steps, his supernatural power to snap massive trees as if they were twigs, and his unnerving ability to vanish into the ever-present fog. An encounter was a moment of supreme judgment. A wasteful or disrespectful hunter might be led astray, have his kill stolen by an unseen force, or simply disappear forever. But an honorable hunter, one who took only what he needed and showed proper reverence, might find his path cleared or be guided toward plentiful game. The fear of Tsul Kalu was a powerful enforcer of conservation and respect. For the villages near what is now Cullowhee, North Carolina, the giant's presence was not just a story, but was etched in stone. At Judaculla Rock, a massive soapstone boulder covered in thousands of petroglyphs, they claimed ancient carvings marked his very presence. The most prominent story tells how the giant leaped from his mountain home at Sunagunyi to the valley below, landing on the rock and steadying himself with his hand, leaving a seven-fingered print that remains to this day. This site was a sacred landmark, a place where the veil between the physical and spiritual worlds was thin, a tangible connection to the great giant himself. But not all the powerful beings of the Smokies were so fearsome. The Cherokee also spoke of the Nunahai, the people who live anywhere, or simply, the immortals. These were benevolent spirit guardians, deeply friendly to the Cherokee people. While they were usually invisible, they could appear as handsome warriors or beautiful women, their presence often accompanied by the faint sound of drums or music on the wind. They were known to be protectors, guiding lost hunters back to their villages, and even intervening in times of war. The Nunehi lived in hidden towns deep within the mountains, under the surface of lakes or behind the facade of sheer rock cliffs. These towns were said to be places of eternal summer, filled with music, dancing, and joy. While the Nunahai were kind, their world held a subtle danger. A human who stumbled into one of their towns might become so enchanted by its beauty and peace that they would lose all desire to return to the mortal world. Trespassers often vanished not out of malice but because they chose to stay, their memory fading from the minds of their kin. Generations of families living along the Oconaluftee River, a central artery of the Cherokee homeland, told stories of direct encounters. They spoke of strange lights bobbing through the woods at night, of disembodied voices and laughter echoing in the trees where no person stood, and of hearing ceremonial drums from the direction of Pilot Knob, a mountain believed to house a major Nunahai town. These weren't frightening occurrences, but reminders that their benevolent guardians were ever present, watching over them from a world just beyond sight. To the Cherokee, these weren't myths or fairy tales. They were a sophisticated library of knowledge, a sacred geography that explained the world and their place within it. The stories of Tsul Kalu taught them to hunt with honor. The legends of the Nunahai gave them courage in times of hardship. They were warnings about which paths to avoid, but also instructions on how to live in balance with the potent forces of the natural world. For them, and for those who listen closely today, the blue smoke of Shakenage is still the breath of these ancient mountains, a living testament to the spirits that dwell within. In the 1700s and 1800s, settlers wrote of strange encounters. At the Nolichucky River, trappers claimed a wild man stalked them at night. They described glowing eyes in torchlight and guttural growls echoing in the valley. In Cades Cove, farmers found livestock missing. Tracks remained, huge, barefoot, not belonging to bear or man, along with a musky stench that clung to the air. By the 1870s, newspapers in North Carolina reported a hairy man captured near Haywood County. Witnesses described him as enormous, resisting 6 men at once. Yet he vanished from custody, never seen again. Other hunters told of valleys they dared not enter where unearthly screams sent entire parties fleeing in terror. On a clear day in September 1940, standing on the border between North Carolina and Tennessee, President Franklin D. Roosevelt formally dedicated the Great Smoky Mountains as a national park. He spoke of preserving the mountains for the people, a sanctuary for generations to come. It was the triumphant culmination of decades of effort and a monumental feat of engineering. The Civilian Conservation Corps, an army of young men, had carved hundreds of miles of roads and trails into the ancient landscape, taming the wilderness and making it accessible for the first time in modern history. Newfound Gap Road, the Blue Ridge Parkway, these were arteries of progress, pumping the lifeblood of tourism deep into the heart of the mountains. And the people came. In cars and on foot, they arrived in waves, eager to witness the misty vistas and cascading waterfalls. But as humanity pushed deeper, laying its claim on the forest, it became clear they were not alone. The park's creation hadn't just opened the mountains to people, it had opened people to the mountains, and to the ancient mysteries that had long been shielded by their isolation. The wilderness, it turned out, had its own inhabitants, and they were beginning to take notice of the new arrivals. The first official signs appeared quietly in the dutifully kept logbooks of park rangers. At first they were dismissed as misidentifications or backcountry folklore, but the entries kept coming. Rangers logged chilling reports of blood-curdling screams echoing across remote valleys, sounds that didn't match any known animal. They documented an unsettling number of hikers vanishing without a trace from well-marked trails, their disappearances leaving behind nothing but questions. And then, there were the visual reports, fleeting glimpses of colossal man-like silhouettes moving with impossible speed across high ridge lines, their forms too large, too fluid to be a bear or any other conventional creature. The rangers were in a difficult position. They are stewards of both the park's natural resources and the public's safety. How do you warn people about a threat you can't prove exists? How do you explain that the primordial fear of the dark woods might in this place have a name and a form? These reports became the park's secret history, a shadow narrative running parallel to the cheerful tourist brochures. By the 1970s, the encounters grew bolder, more direct. The Great Smoky Mountains were solidifying their reputation as one of the most active Bigfoot hotspots east of the Mississippi. One of the most compelling accounts from this era came from a lone camper in Cades Cove. He had set up his tent on a quiet summer evening, the air still and warm. Deep in the night, he was jolted awake by a sound, a low, guttural breathing just outside the thin nylon wall. Then the entire tent began to shake as if a car were pressing against it. Frozen with terror, he fumbled for his flashlight. As he shone it on the tent wall, he could see the fabric indenting from a massive hand. But it was the smell that he would never forget. A putrid, overpowering stench he described as a mix of rotting meat, wet dog, and skunk, a biological assault that defied all explanation. Summoning every ounce of courage, he unzipped the tent flap and was met with a sight that would haunt him forever. A hulking bipedal figure, at least 8 feet tall and covered in dark matted hair, turning to melt back into the impenetrable darkness. The olfactory element is incredibly consistent in Class A reports. Witnesses who get close often describe this uniquely terrible odor. It's not just a generic animal smell. It's complex, and some theorize it's a byproduct of a specialized metabolism or a glandular secretion used for marking territory. For the witness, it's often the most visceral, unforgettable part of the encounter, a sensory confirmation that what they experienced was a real, biological entity. A decade later, in the 1980s, another classic type of encounter was reported in the dense forest of the Greenbrier area. A pair of experienced hunters, men who knew every sound of the woods, were tracking deer deep in a hollow. The forest fell silent. Then, a loud sharp echoed from the ridge to their right, like a baseball bat hitting a tree. They paused, listening. A few seconds later, from a completely different ridge to their left, an identical answered back. It was a clear, deliberate call and response. They were caught in the middle of a conversation. This phenomenon, known as wood knocking, is one of the most frequently reported pieces of Sasquatch evidence. Wood knocking is fascinating because it suggests intelligent communication over distance. It's not a random noise. The cadence, the rhythm, the call and response pattern reported by witnesses imply a purpose. Is it a territorial warning, a way for a family group to keep track of each other in dense terrain? We see similar percussive communication in other primates, like chimpanzees drumming on tree roots. For these hunters in Greenbrier, it was a clear message. We are here. We know you are here. In 1990, at the very peak of the Smokies, another encounter highlighted the creature's sheer power. A group of hikers had reached the summit of Clingman's Dome to watch the sunset. As twilight settled over the endless sea of mountains, the normal evening chorus of birds and insects abruptly ceased. The silence was absolute, unnatural. Then, from a valley far below, a sound erupted that was unlike anything they had ever heard. It wasn't a bear's roar or a coyote's howl. It was a deep, resonant vocalization that was so powerful they could feel it vibrating in their chests, even from miles away. The howl rose in pitch and intensity, a mournful and terrifying declaration that seemed to shake the very air, before cutting off as suddenly as it began. For several long minutes after, the forest remained utterly silent, as if all life was holding its breath in terror. The new millennium brought encounters that seemed to suggest a growing boldness, or perhaps frustration, with human presence. In 2004, a man fly fishing in the tranquil Cataloochee Valley was startled by a tremendous splash just yards from where he stood. A boulder the size of a car tire had been hurled into the river from the dense tree line. Looking up, he saw a massive, dark, upright figure turn and disappear into the foliage. It was a stunning display of raw power, interpreted by many as an unambiguous territorial warning. Then, in 2011, a thru hiker on the Appalachian Trail reported a more psychological ordeal. For 2 straight days, he had the unshakable feeling of being watched, of being followed. He would hear a heavy footfall just moments after his own, a snapped twig always just out of sight. He never saw it clearly, but he felt its presence constantly, a large, intelligent shadow moving parallel to him, a silent and unnerving companion on his journey. And then, in 2017, came the kind of evidence researchers dream of. Along a muddy bank of the Oconaluftee River, a set of astonishingly clear footprints was discovered. They measured a full 16 inches in length and nearly 8 inches wide. Plaster casts were made, revealing incredible detail. The prints showed 5 distinct toes and what appeared to be a flexible midfoot, a feature known as the mid-tarsal break, which is present in apes but not in modern humans. This anatomical detail would allow for better shock absorption and stability on uneven, rugged terrain. Exactly the kind of adaptation one would expect from a massive bipedal creature thriving in the Smokies. These individual accounts are part of a much larger pattern. The Bigfoot Field Researchers Organization, or BFRO, has meticulously logged dozens of credible Smoky Mountain encounters, classifying them based on the quality of the evidence. Their database reveals a clear and persistent cluster of activity in the region. The counties bordering the park, Sevier in Tennessee and Swain and Graham in North Carolina, remained consistent hotspots. This is no coincidence. These areas contain some of the most remote, inaccessible, and least explored wilderness in the entire Appalachian chain, providing a perfect refuge for a creature that wishes to remain hidden. When you synthesize the hundreds of reports from the Great Smoky Mountains, a consistent profile emerges. Witnesses consistently describe immense broad-shouldered primates, a physique necessary to support the biomechanics of a massive upright walker. They report glowing eyes, which is likely the tapetum lucidum, a reflective layer in the eyes of many nocturnal animals, catching the light of a flashlight or campfire. But above all, they describe intelligence. They describe a creature that uses the terrain to its advantage, that observes from a distance, that communicates, that warns, and that chooses when and how it is seen. It is not a monster. It is a master of its environment, a relict hominoid hiding in plain sight. The story of the Smokies is no longer just about the park we created, but about the ancient inhabitant we rediscovered, always near and always watching. Beyond sightings, the Smokies speak in sound. Wood knocks answering like coded messages, piercing screams recorded near Fontana Lake, so loud they rattled the chest, growls so low and deep that even rangers admitted they'd never heard anything like it. Hunters say, bears don't knock on trees. No cougar screams like this. Whatever makes these sounds, it's something else. The Smokies hide more than legends, they hide the missing. Dennis Martin, 1969, 6 years old, vanished in minutes while playing hide-and-seek at Spence Field. Despite 1,400 searchers, not a single trace was found. Some swore they heard a child's scream echo through the valley. Trenny Gibson, 1976, a 16-year-old schoolgirl disappeared on a class trip near Klingman's Dome. Dozens saw her walking. No one saw her step off trail. She was never found. Other hikers have left behind campsites intact, food uneaten, packs untouched, except for massive barefoot tracks nearby. Park officials deny a link, but locals whisper something stalks these ridges, taking who it chooses. Patterns emerge. Sightings spike in late fall and early spring when fog is thickest. Many occur near rivers and creeks. Witnesses often smell a musky odor moments before. Countless hikers describe being shadowed, followed for miles, never harmed, never fully seen. So what are people encountering? Some believe relic hominids, survivors of Gigantopithecus. Folklore believers point to Cherokee warnings as literal truth. Sul Kalu and the Nunahai still roam. The Smoky Mountains are beautiful, but also secretive. Hikers vanish. Footsteps follow where no man should walk. Giants appear, then disappear into mist. So the next time you step into the blue smoke of these ancient ridges, remember, something may be watching. The Smokies are alive, but not just with wildlife.